did like a quick head count. I got like
Good evening,
31 comments.
and welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Tonight, we are going to have a public hearing on the proposed code amendments for changing some of the designations in a couple areas of the city in regards to duplexes. So before we start, I think Kristen is going to give us an update on why the city is proposing this and what it does entail. And while she's getting ready, I must admit, in the years and years and years that I've been on this committee, I have never seen so many people in the audience, so thank you all for coming.
Yes, impressive.
Okay, so as Joan mentioned, we are talking about some proposed changes to the permitted uses that are currently allowed in the single-family suburban zone. The changes that we are proposing, so currently single-family suburban zoning allows for duplexes and triplexes if they are part of a cluster development and have at least 2 acres. So our proposal is to remove duplexes and remove cluster housing developments from this zone. And I need to note, this does not affect accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units may still be built in this area.
What is that? What is cluster housing?
So,
Giving you first, sorry. This is a presentation.
Yeah, let Kristen go through it, and then you all will have have opportunities to discuss and ask questions, so.
but I will go ahead and state, however, just to be clear, that cluster housing is a way to protect the environment, and you can, instead of putting, maybe you want to put one big house in the middle of a lot, it doesn't allow for that. You can push things back a little further, put houses closer together, do duplexes, do triplexes to protect the environment there. It changes the character a bit, but you cannot do more, you can't do any more density than is currently allowed in that zone. Okay. So the affected areas, as you all probably recognize from your letter, the affected areas would be those properties that are already zoned single-family suburban, which are those that are highlighted in yellow here. And notices were sent, you all received letters, so notices were sent to all property owners within that zone, as well as all property owners within 300 feet of that zone. Why are we doing this? So 2 reasons. In 2012, we adopted our Central Issaquah plan, which said that we want all growth to go into Central Issaquah. We don't want to build up on our hillsides. We don't want to expand our urban growth boundary. We want it to go to Central Issaquah, so let's make it happen. The other reason is in the comprehensive plan, Housing Policy A1 says to ensure neighborhood compatibility of infill development and redevelopment and encourage preservation of the density and building scale in older plats of the city. So the proposed amendments, this is it. We are proposing to this is our permitted use table. And when there is a number in the permitted use table, that means it's allowed, and that means that the number represents kind of the level of review that it gets. And what we're proposing is to just take, right there it says duplexes. If you go down single family, it says 2. We're just going to take that out. That's our proposal. And then if you go down to cluster housing, 2 acres, and cluster housing, 5 acres or greater, same thing. Just take any numbers out of there and leave it blank so that it wouldn't be allowed. The impacts right now, as far as we can tell from the King County assessor data, there are no duplexes in this area. And so obviously nothing existing that we know of would be affected, but then no duplexes or triplexes, no new ones could be constructed. So next steps, this is our presentation tonight. We'll do a public hearing after this, and we'll get to hear from the public. Then the commission will discuss it and perhaps make a recommendation tonight. And then on April 4th, we'll take it, that doesn't finish it, then on April 4th, we'll take it to our Land and Shore Council Committee. And if we need to go back to them, we will on May 2nd. And then in May 20th, it's anticipated that council would make the final action on this proposed amendment. And if anybody has any other questions after tonight, you can either go to our website that's listed up here, or you can contact me, Kristen Leeson, and that's my information. I have.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to open the public hearing at 6:36. I would ask that, I know that some of you have written down your names to speak this evening, and I know some of you came in late, so you'd have the opportunity to speak even though you have not signed up. So we're going to stay on, but these 6 people are going to have the first chance to come up and speak, and then anybody else who would like to come up will have the opportunity to come up and address the committee. So first on the list is Michael.
Joan, may I make one quick comment? Joan,
If you would,
may I make one quick comment? May I make one quick comment about public comment?
yes, go.
So I just wanted to note that, let's see, and this is for the commission as well, we received 34 comments via email and phone calls, and all of those comments, whether it was phone or email, were forwarded to the commissions. They have seen all of those.
Yes, we've read all of them. Thank you so much for the contribution. So if you go to the microphone and tell us who you are.
My name is Michael Leake. I live at 195 Mount Si Place Northwest, and I have lived there for just over 24 years now. Have known and shopped and used the city since '77 when I came to the area. So I've seen quite a bit of growth, not all of which have I found desirable to my taste, but there's a lot of opinions on that. What I think is most germane to the discussion tonight is wanting an opportunity to support this plan. I think it works well to further the goals of the city and have relatively minimal impacts to citizens who want to live in some other way than those in the suburban housing that some of us live in. I think it's probably overdue, but we have to act when we can act. There's nothing but more demand for more housing in the metropolitan area, and this city can't obviously control what Seattle does that raises demand for housing, and it can't otherwise control what Bellevue does. But as they create an environment, whether expensive housing or economic growth, that leads more people to be looking for more housing, the least Issaquah can do is have a good plan, control its housing growth, focus it where it belongs, and not change the existing nature of existing communities. I think that's all I need to say about the, thank you
Thank
for an
you.
opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next is Bill Warner.
My name is Bill Werner. I live at 1104 Lewis Lane Southeast in Issaquah, and I am very much not in favor of this ordinance for a number of reasons. Number one, I don't think that more government oversight about what people can do with their individual properties is required. There's already a whole ton of ordinances and regulations, and even without this, the hoops that this city makes people jump through to do anything is mind-boggling senseless. For example, there is a 100 square foot footprint for a blackberry bush, not the roots that big, but the blackberry bush, if it is out to 100 square feet, which is 10 feet by 10 feet, it requires permission from the city to get rid of that blackberry bush. And oh, you cannot use mechanized means. You must use hand shovels only to protect the environment. And these are some of the silly things that we have to face. In reading the letter, it says, this proposal is consistent with the city's goal to focus new housing development into central Issaquah instead of suburban areas. I don't attend many meetings, but I love to watch them on TV. and I watched the last council of the whole meeting, and I watched several meetings from last year when a developer was brought in by the city to say, the city wanted him to say, what would it take to develop downtown here? And the developer, my read on him is he was doing everything he could to not laugh out loud. Because the restrictions to do anything in Issaquah for a developer are, number one, horrible. The city was not going to make any concessions whatsoever on any of the processes. And when one or two city council members say, well, maybe you could do it for cost, or maybe even a little bit of a loss, why would anybody do that? Good citizens and all, there's no reason to develop downtown when it's not cost feasible. If the city is not willing to do the things that are necessary in its own backyard and in its own processes, that's what should be addressed first. If the city has a goal to focus new housing developments into the central Issaquah instead of suburban areas, they should do a little bit more due diligence as to why people don't want to go down there. The other big issue is traffic. And until the city starts revisiting the southeast bypass, which was the sole best answer to resolving traffic in this city, that needs to be readdressed. All of this stuff about, well, maybe we can punch another thing onto I-90 and go under and go across and blah, 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 doesn't do anything. Southeast bypass, cut it off where it's supposed to at 6th Avenue, come along the high school. It's not going to do any of the fearsome things that Mr. Kapler and everybody else on the city council said years ago. It's not going to destroy Tiger Mountain. It won't be visible from I-90. So I stand against this, and I would encourage the city to stay out of ruining potentially people's financial dreams, because people, when they buy houses and land, they want to maximize their ability, because quite often this is our retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't read the next. Is it Bruce? You help me on this one?
Hunter? Ms. Mino? At 1380?
No? Okay, Ed? Eric, Al, oh,
Thank you for having us tonight. Bill, appreciate your passion. It's impressive.
do you
But I'm
state your name?
Yeah, I'm Ed Erickson, 1434 Sycamore Drive, Southeast. Moved to Issaquah about 3 years ago. Appreciate your passion, but I grossly, respectfully disagree with a lot that you said. When I moved to Issaquah, I want green space. I want lots of space. Issaquah to me is more about community. Let's leave our spaces open. Let's be welcome. Let's make this a beautiful place to live. I don't want duplexes, triplexes everywhere in my neighborhood. We can centralize all we want to do about maximizing my property for a profit. I'm not going to be living off my property for a profit. If I want to do that, I'll go develop it somewhere else. All right? In fact, here in Sycamore, we already have a challenge. The city wants to bring sewer in. And so this idea of eliminating duplexes, triplexes, multiple homes to our neighborhood is very advantageous to us. In fact, we look at it as probably one of the first good offers from the city to help us come to a conclusion if sewer would be a good idea for Sycamore. So the idea of eliminating these large lots for extra homes, we just don't want. And so we applaud the city for taking this step to bring this idea to the table of potentially eliminating overdevelopment from a neighborhood that doesn't want it. In fact, we have beautiful lots. We have huge acreage lots where my neighbor has 1.5 acres. My friend Bill over here has about that too. Those two together can probably put 10 homes between the two of them if they wanted to. Thank God they don't want to do it, right? And by eliminating these duplexes and triplexes, that eliminates some of the fear that we have about wanting to raise our family here and be here for 40 years like the gentleman talked about earlier, and preserving the beautiful nature of Issaquah. So thank you for taking a step in the right direction, in our opinion. And you have my full support on this duplex, triplex elimination from certain zones in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarice? 635 Northwest. I'm sorry, I can't read. That's you? You're passing? Okay, would anybody else like to speak?
My name's Geraldine Carey, 955 17th Avenue, Northwest Issaquah. Normally, as usual, I don't ever plan to get up here and speak, but there are times when silence is detrimental to things that we value. And I just want to say I commend the city for limiting the development in the suburban area. I have lived here 40 years. I have seen the hillsides covered with houses. I don't want to see the same area covered with 2 houses so that it creates a huge density. So, you know, we all want to maximize our investment, but to downgrade our living environment by putting houses to where one should go high up, I don't think it's going to be a benefit to the people who are who bought their properties before. And I'm sorry for the people who bought their properties. I too bought my property, but I'm willing to keep one house on it. And, you know, I was afraid what was going to happen was you guys were going to make me put lots of places and price me out of where I live. So I just want to let you know I support this change to the zoning, and I hope you can pass it. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? We'll try L, and then we'll go to you.
Al Erickson, 1670 Brookside Drive Southeast, Sycamore. Well, I've been in Issaquah for 66 years, so I've been here for quite a while too. And I concur with with Ed, what he just said a few moments ago. I support this of eliminating the duplexes and multifamily. I think you can look around any of the old town Issaquah and see large multifamily structures that have been built, and for the most part, they have damaged the neighborhoods significantly. The old neighborhoods don't look like they used to, which is very unfortunate. And there's some you can go up Andrew Street. There's some real dandies there if you want to take a look at between 5th and 6th Street. So I support this amendment, and I hope the commission and the council move forward with it. Thanks.
Thank you. You.
Hello, my name is Leif Steffny. My family, we own property on 385 East Sunset Way. And yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about it. I am respectfully against the plans. As property owners there, that was part of our idea into family retirement, is being able to, you know, in a tasteful, respectful manner, be able to develop the property with fewer regulations. And whether that's, you know, putting a duplex on or mixed use or something like that. I agree with, don't remember the name of the gentleman, but essentially that governments don't need to keep looking into what private citizens are doing, since there's already a lot of other regulations on us. Plus, the other thing that I think is a little weird is that essentially we're limiting the ability of private persons to do small-scale development and, you know, run that as their income, but yet we're allowing large developers to build huge sites like the Highlands or next to I-90, which is almost complete now. So it seems a little bit like feel-good politics to all of a sudden say, oh, well, now we're going to put a cap on it when we've already allowed I don't know how many homes going in over there, which of course isn't going to help the traffic situation. So Yeah, I think there's other priorities we need to work on first before we limit the private person's ability to control what they do on their property, which is what the country's kind of about. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Gentleman in the front.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Joe Werner, and I live at 1230 Oakwood Place, which is west of SR 900, off of Newport Way Northwest. My comment will be brief. I support this proposed zoning change, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, go.
Hi, my name is Tony Pydick. I live at 395 Mine Hill Road Southwest. I've raised my family in Issaquah. I've been here for about 20 years. I'm an architect, and so I have worked with a lot of developers and understand their objectives. I do support wholeheartedly this change in the zoning. As someone who lives in Issaquah, in one of the affected areas, I think that this is a really important distinction that gives clear direction to development in the city, directed development in the proper areas that will be able to support the higher density types of projects that are on the horizon for Issaquah. I see a real threat to the character of the community, the residential communities in particular. Areas that are already zoned single family should be single family, not cluster houses, not multi-unit developments. Those will erode and destroy the residential communities and the characters of it is a fundamental character of the fabric of Issaquah. Understand that there's an impact to some private property owners. They may have anticipated being able to capitalize on their properties. But I think the zoning does provide opportunity to do that on a lot of those larger properties. It just may not be as grandiose as maybe they thought it would be. And another issue that I think is important to consider is the environment and the unique qualities of Issaquah in terms of the environment are really clear. The wildlife, the fauna, the watersheds, the Issaquah Creek, all of those things are really delicate and in peril right now. We live on one area where there's really the last remaining riparian zone, which connects Squawk Mountain, the top of Squawk Mountain, to the Issaquah Creek. So we get black bear, fox, bobcat, deer, all kinds of different critters coming up and down from the mountain down to the creek. And so I really do appreciate and applaud the vision that includes maintaining that quality as it affects the environment. Because a lot of the developers, I mean, frankly, they're looking for the open land. So they're going to go try to find that open land, and they're going to try to densify it and maximize their dollar. I work with a lot of these guys, so I understand what they're trying to do, and they're entitled to do that within the limits of the law and the code. So, but I think they do. There is a tendency to come in and really, take advantage of pieces of property that are otherwise were never intended for high density development. And we had one right in our backyard that was. They were looking to put 26 units on 2 acres. So, and they were cluster housing. I mean, it was all kinds of manner of attempts by the developer to maximize their profits on the property at the expense of the people that live around the community. So, living this experience, and when we got this memo, I was just like, this beautiful thing, because everyone's entitled to develop their property, but the idea of maximizing development for the dollar, I think, is the real challenge. It's the real temptation. This, I hope, will temper that, and we'll have more thoughtful development that maintains the character of the community. And I would also like to say that I think there's room for additional oversight of designs to make sure that the quality of the designs of the buildings that are being proposed in this community are maintained to very high standards. That will benefit everyone's property values, and it'll benefit the community, and design matters. And, you know, I think that we need to be careful that some of the designs that are being built, constructed, designed, approved by the city, in my opinion, leave something to be desired. They're cheap, they're dollar-driven, and I think there would be a lot of benefit if the city could pay more attention to some of that, those kinds of issues in the review process. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Came for a different reason, but this is, my name is Bill McNeil, 1380 Sycamore Drive, Southeast. I've been in Issaquah for 39 years. 30 years ago, I was on the Architectural Review Committee. I am a registered architect. They register architects, nurses, and sex offenders.
Could you speak a little closer to the mic?
Okay.
Thank you.
We're more than a day late and dollars short. I hear people speak eloquently, and rightfully so, regarding the character of Issaquah. That went down the drain quite a bit ago, folks. That's one side of the argument here. The other side is you have people here who bought property that was zoned for multifamily. They paid the money based on the city's designation that they could build a duplex, a triplex, whatever, was in accordance with the zoning. How are you going to compensate them? They made a decision based on the city's rules, right? They bought a multifamily lot. Now you're going to tell them that they can't do that. How are you going to compensate them? You're taking money away from people. The gentleman talked about it. On the other hand, we've let development run amok and take away the character of the city. Aesthetically, what is the standard? My fellow architect speaks about having stronger design standards, et cetera. That's a really personal, individual decision as to what's pretty and what's not. Take a look at any of our spouses. Okay? I think my wife is gorgeous. Somebody else, her ex-husband, didn't. Okay?
I hope she's not listening to that.
No, she's the one that conned me into coming here. I told a different subject matter. But do you see the dilemma? Who here has perfect aesthetic value judgment? I personally think that the stuff that has been built alongside I-90 is horrific and totally out of character. Stuff on Gilliman is totally out of character for the city I moved to 40 years ago. I can't stop that. And somebody thought that that was aesthetically pleasing. Now, if you go to certain areas of Seattle or Bellevue, yeah, it fits right in. We have no character left for this city, and that is a shame. I also echo the Southeast bypass as being incredible that we passed up on that. You have an incredibly difficult decision to make. On one hand, you're going to tell people that believed in you and your rules and our rules and regulations, the zoning, when they purchase this piece of property. And you're going to take that money away from them, and it may be their retirement fund. I own, in addition to my home, 2 properties in downtown. One already has a duplex on it. One is zoned for a duplex. Are you going to compensate me for my loss of potential income there? Probably not. But do you see that there are 2 very distinct sides here, and we have no moral high ground?
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak?
I'm Leslie Lewis. Excuse me, I live at 185 Southwest Francis Lane.
Could you,
Microphone.
yes, thank you.
Hello. I lived here back in the 70, during the oil crisis, and there was a stop, a four-way stop on Front Street at the time. I moved here 27 years ago, and I've owned my house on Francis Lane. We live on a gravel lane in the old mining district, the historic mining district. And my neighbor across the gravel lane has 5 acres that you would never know about. However, if this does not pass, there will be multifamily building there. And all year long, we have deer walking through. Excuse me, we've had bear. We have raccoons and bobcats. Mine Hill Road is at best a little better than 1 lane. And I can't do anything about what's happened in the past. I can't do anything about what anybody else wants. But I was born and raised in Bellevue, and I've seen that town go to shit. And I'm 66, and Bellevue Way was a dirt road back then. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Issaquah anymore. When do we say stop? There's got to be a point where we say stop. And this is a beautiful opportunity. I highly commend you for this. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I had to read the thing about 4 times. It's like I am going to that meeting. So, we have children that play in the street. We are single-family units on my little gravel lane. Sorry, I'm just getting over something. And it's not going to get, I can't even imagine what will happen on the streets with traffic. I can barely even get down Newport to Wildwood to get home. I have to go the back way up over Tibbetts, especially during the wintertime. And please do this. Protect this beautiful little old town of Issaquah. Thanks.
Would anybody else like to speak, please?
My name is David Christ, 23810 Southeast 59th Street. I've lived in Issaquah for 17 years, and one of the things that attracted me to Issaquah and why I bought property here was the beautiful surroundings and the open space nearby. And the beauty of Issaquah is something that I think we all value. And when we say beauty and open space, a lot of us mean relatively low density, and that's what attracted us to live here instead of living in Seattle or Bellevue or other higher density places. One positive aspect of this proposed rule change is that it will keep the lower density character of the suburban zone properties, which is very appealing change. And I hope that this is a baby step in the right direction and that the city might consider lowering density and new construction in other zones as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak? Please, come to the microphone.
Yeah, hi, my name is Dave Hitchner. I live at 990 Pickering Place in Issaquah. And I guess what I have to say is fairly short. I'm not sure what the driving force is behind this. If the zoning is 4.5 dwelling units per acre, I'm not sure why it matters if it's duplexes or clustered homes. That doesn't change the number of homes per acre. And if it does change the density, then there's a flaw there. So clustered homes and duplexes require less material and less of a footprint. So I would say they're more environmentally sound. they also are probably more affordable. So it seems like they click all the boxes, and I don't understand why you want to do this. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak?
Can I ask a question of staff, please? As a clarification on this.
Sure.
My name is Bill Werner, 1104 Lewis Lane again. Could staff give us an example of somebody with a 16,500 square foot lot with a single family house on it now? And are they able to still boundary line adjust or short plat, or will this take this out of play? And this is only regarding a duplex addition to that.
So,
In other words, does this only come into play for cluster housing and duplexes, but not a boundary line adjustment or short plat?
So duplexes are only allowed in this zone as part of cluster zoning, and cluster zoning requires 2 acres or more.
Okay. So somebody that has an existing 16,500 foot lot and they want to develop that, and the city has a standard of 8,000 square feet, can they put 2 houses there?
No, because it's,
So you're just talking single-family houses now, right?
Yeah.
And not duplexes.
Two single-family houses. That won't affect it at all?
There's
If
a
I don't
minimum.
build a duplex and just wanted to subdivide my land?
well, there's a minimum lot size in single-family suburban that already exists, and I think, correct Keith, I think it's 9,000 square feet. 6,000 square feet
6,000?
is the minimum lot size? Thank you. So there are so many things that come into play, and I don't know what this is, but sure, if somebody wanted to subdivide it and the minimum lot size is still 6,000 square feet, then yes, you could have 2 separate single-family houses.
But not duplexes?
Correct.
That's one of the points, is that I have a very good friend who's also up on Meadowbrook, and he's got a little over 1 acre, and he's wondering why he can't subdivide, and I told him, well, the basic reason is that there's no sewer. So, but thank you. That clarifies this point,
Okay.
and so for that, I now have mixed feelings about it. I'm not completely against it. I'm not a big fan of duplexes either, but with that said, I don't think the government should have much more say in what it is that we do with our land.
Would anybody else like to make a comment? Please come to the microphone. You.
Hello, my name's Jeff Hostetter, resident of Issaquah for the last 22 years with my wife. We've raised our family here. We're still raising our family here. And I wasn't going to speak, but something was said that I had to think about, and that was the quality of Issaquah life is deteriorating or is gone. And I have to only look at my own neighborhood, and it's the same as when we moved there. And it's wonderful. And the kids still play in the street, and we have bouncy houses in the front yard, and there's room to do it, and that's why we moved here, was for that. If I wanted to live in apartments, I would have moved to Tukwila and bought a condo, because 20 years ago, that's what was going on. And I don't think it's lost, and I do applaud this and very much support it, because I think we need to support the single-family homes that are there. There's lots, if you want to live in group homes, cluster houses, there's lots of places for that, but we need to not make that for everywhere. And I'd like to continue to see our neighborhood have the character that it does. So thank you for putting this proposal together, and my wife and I very much support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask one more time. Would anybody else like to speak? We haven't heard from a lot of people sitting out there, so you're sure that nobody else would like to make a comment? Okay. Talked into it.
Hello. My name is Leslie Pantuso, and I've been in Issaquah for a little over 40 years. And I would just like to commend the committee for this agenda or whatever this proposal, because I've seen the character of Issaquah slowly deteriorate as well. And I just would like you know, environmentally, as far as, you know, families having the right to have a place to call their home that's not impeding on profits or money or things of that nature. I mean, I have deers. I'm at 355 Southwest Mount Baker Drive. I have deer in the backyard. There's bears that come through my property. It's really a very, you know, environmentally place to live, and there's no longer that many places around that provide that. And that's one of the reasons that my husband and I, who passed away recently, moved here. And I would like to stay and continue living in this place, and I hope that the committee does move forward with this proposal. Thank you so much for hearing my.
In order for the city to have a record of who spoke this evening, Kristen's going to pass that clipboard around. And if you've made any comments tonight, could you please sign up? And for the people whose signatures I could not read, could you make it a little clearer so the city could understand who was there? So I will ask one more time. Does anybody else want to speak this evening? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:12 and open up for comments for the committee. I do understand that there are always people that, you know, think different ways about everything, but I think the city is trying very hard to keep some or as much as they can of the great stuff we have in the city. So it's very difficult to listen to both sides and come up with something that would be acceptable to both people. I do understand that it's hard. I don't like it when the government tells me what to do, but sometimes what they decide actually works. And it might be that this is one of those times. So do I have any comments?
I'd like to say thank you to everybody, and again, after, I guess, my true role should be whip counter, because I've been whipping votes, and what I've seen is that there is a strong majority in favor of seeing this amendment to the code go through to council. And that's not only been demonstrated tonight, that was demonstrated in the mail that we received in the 31 letters previously. Just real quickly, most of the people here tonight were incredibly in favor for this amendment. Only a few were against it, and that does not negate those who were against it. It doesn't mean that their voices aren't important to hear. It doesn't mean that what they said does not have value in what they were saying. But ultimately, the goal of the comprehensive plan is to move our city in an appropriate direction and have a vision for the city. We are trying to put our more density housing into central Issaquah. And to the, I believe it was Jeff? Or it might have been Dave before. But someone had mentioned that you can subdivide lots. So again, it's not that lots that were bought previously. I know there was a young gentleman that spoke a little earlier. It doesn't mean that you can't do that. It just means we're trying to keep certain types of structures out of our suburban areas. Now, the other thing too, as far as the government regulating what you can do, is these are already zoned for single residential areas. So you already have stipulations on that property as it is today. So all we are trying to do is make sure that we continue to adhere to that vision for the city and make sure that we do keep some of our single residential areas neat and clean, and kind of keeping what happened closer to the I-90 not happening in some of our other areas, in our foothills and areas such as that. So I personally am for this amendment. I'd like it to see it go to council myself.
Would anybody else like to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make two comments here. One, I understand from a
believe this proposal would protect the values of the significant majority of the community. And when it comes to value as an investor, I don't know that it would actually have a negative effect on real estate prices. I think that one could say that if you don't have the higher density within a community, it could actually raise the values of the homes because they're more homogeneous, and because people are looking for
Ron, you need to speak into the microphone. They keep blinking.
people would be looking for more space. And if they want the higher density, we're going to have that down in the valley. We actually have higher density over in Highlands. So I think Issaquah does a great job of serving those needs as well. And I think this proposal would actually help protect the communities that are existing, the larger properties. So I'm actually in favor of it.
So one of the things Issaquah needs is diversity in housing, opportunities for anybody, everybody to have a place to call home, whether it be single-family, duplex, condos, whatever. And so I think that this is necessary for the city to keep some of its quaintness. And I, as a Realtor, I will follow up on my committee member here. This is, by having only a small number of single-family homes, it's going to increase the value of your land tremendously. Probably even more than if you had the ability to build a duplex. Because they will be, those kinds of properties will be in extreme short supply. And so I can't look at this as devaluating the property, the value of your property. I think it's going to increase it tremendously. With all of the building that is going to be going on in downtown, in the central area, you're going to have a gold mine. So I can't, you know, fault the city for proposing this. I think it's a good idea. So, are you ready to make a motion?
Yeah, I would just like to also say that, you know, I joined the commission as a way of trying to work with the city to come up with a better design, better plans going forward. I share a lot of the same ideas about kind of the growth run rampant. I applaud the city's idea here. I think it's going to work really well to direct growth where we know it could be sustained. So I'm for it.
We're ready to make a motion?
Motion?
So I'd like to make a motion to propose the amendments to the IMC 18.06.130, table permitted land uses unaltered.
Have a second?
Like to second?
Any further discussion? So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You know, the reason that, one of the reasons that planning policy is here, I mean, to look at and look at all the policies in the city, but a lot of it is to give the community the opportunity to make comments and to be part of what goes on in the city. So I really applaud you all for coming this evening, and I thank you all for doing that. So thank you. So do you want to do anything else coming up? There are a lot of slots on the Planning Policy Commission. If you're interested in joining the commission, please go online and fill in an application. Kristen? Yes.
I don't have anything else. Everything that went to Land and Shore last time that has come here, I believe is going back to Land and Shore, so no action's been taken. I think that's it. We don't have any other updates.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to close the meeting at 7:22. And thank you.